Tonight, I'd like to also acknowledge the sponsors of the event, the series. You saw their logos, but especially Bruce Power, Ontario Power Generation, and Enbridge. Those organizations have been partners of ours for the last number of years. And for this series specifically, we'd like to thank Cook's Plumbing and Heating, Hyundai, and Evolve Builders, who have all jumped in to support these events and have their logo added. So part of what we do is promote consumption of local goods and services, especially those that are environmentally beneficial and help reduce emissions and create local jobs as well. So I'd also like to acknowledge a number of people around the table. Lee Grigg is helping with the back end. Lee is the current chair of the Sustainability Network, and he's also working directly with the Grey Bruce Climate Action Group and created a website under that name. Simona Freibergova is handling the back end of our chat room. And I'm getting a phone call, which I won't take at the moment. It's probably somebody wondering what's going on. Excuse me. And Simona's also on the board and doing a lot of our financial work. And I noticed Bruce Davidson has joined. He's one of our contractors, former board chair. And finally, I'd like to simply let you know that tonight's theme is food and agriculture. And we will review some of the other upcoming, this is the last event of this year, and I think January 26th will be the second in the food and agriculture series. And finally, I'd like to introduce another one of our board members, Witold Kreutzer, who is all the way from Chatsworth. And Witold, many of you know Witold. He's been involved in environmental issues over the years, a lot of work on off-grid energy programs and that sort of thing. Maybe you've toured his house because he's held many tours of his off-grid place in Chatsworth. Witold is the host tonight, and he'll be introducing our speakers. And he's really is the brains behind this this event, and it's really planted a seed for us to move forward using Zoom and using video technologies. And I'd like to also acknowledge Kevin Moyes, who's our videographer and is running the back end show of the videos tonight. And I'll also give a plug for he and his wife are playing at the Owen Sound Farmers Market on this Thursday out in the freezing cold at noon. So be there. And I heard him laugh in the background. So without further ado, unless anybody's got anything else to add, I'd like to introduce Witold Kreutzer. I just thought of one other thing. When I see the emails coming in and the registrations for this event, I know a lot of the names, but a lot of the emails, a lot of the names I don't recognize, and even the type of email, it's not Gmail, it's something that I don't recognize as far as so if you could, when you just go into the chat room, and that's where you could place your questions for anybody around the table, but also just let us know where you're from. And that'll give us an idea of who's coming in. This is obviously a Grey Bruce focused thing, but I know that we have lots of registrations from beyond the borders, so to speak. So having said that, I think I've got everything, and I'll turn things over to Witold Kreutzer.
Thanks,
there,
Barry.
Witold? There you go.
I'm ready to go, and thanks everyone for being here tonight. I can mention that with so many things happening these days, it's always nice to see people think that what you're offering is worthy of their time. Tonight, we start our second theme of the series, and it'll be shown over two parts, tonight and the last Tuesday in January. The basis of this theme is that we all are striving for a healthier future for all of us. So tonight, we're going to explore local food growing and farming practices, and hope that we can see where we can join forces and become closer to those who grow our food, and vice versa. Because every day, I look at it this way, we're putting sunshine on our plates and into our bodies. My desire has always been to keep my food as natural as possible and eat it at its prime, especially in form of energy, nutrition, with no evidence of any pollutants or residues. It's hard to do that because I cannot look into the eyes of the farmer in Argentina or further of the food growers that supply our some of our supermarkets. So one way that I thought we would do is we would look at local food family farms, and that's what we will present tonight. To me, these 4 growers grow healthy organic food, and therefore I look at it as they are growing the fabric of our community. Well, mainly its health, vitality, and its ability to thrive and evolve. I look upon these 4 and all others like them as agents of healing for the better future of all. If I could ask everyone a question, how many generations do you or any of us have to go back to get to our ancestors that actually worked the land and provided seed for future generations? No matter what the answer is, I'm hoping that we can do some of this by looking at what our ancestors did to bring into our consciousness their wisdom and their practices. One way of doing this is to seek out those amongst us that are doing the same thing, so that to help us relearn the meaning of health, growth, and a common future for ourselves and the environment. We're going to start this journey tonight by looking into our own backyard of Grey Bruce and learn from those who offer us locally grown, organic, nutrient-dense, and vitality-enriched energy that satisfies all our physical, mental, emotional, and hopefully spiritual needs. So let's approach this by examining our backyard. The 4 growers that we are going to be examining and that we were videoed are part, and I think they do represent a growing initiative that surrounds us and supports us. They are 4 family-based, locally growing enterprises that I approached earlier this year. 4 of many that would have offered their stories if circumstances and time allowed. These are 4 unique, diverse, and distinguished stories that I believe only show the tip of the iceberg of what is possible in Grey Bruce. So let's start with the first one. Kevin was very good, and when we went around to all the farms, we just hoped that the weather would be good and we wouldn't have to walk through mud, and we were very fortunate. And the first farm that we went to in West Grey, we visited the farm of Cory Eichman, who runs the Saugeen River CSA, or Community Supportive Agriculture Venture. I hope that Kevin is about ready to present, because Cory was very good in giving of his time, and you'll find he's very knowledgeable and has been doing this for quite some time. Okay, Kevin, it's all up to you now. Well, thank you, Cory Eichman, for inviting us to your farm. We're at the farm of Cory and his family in West Grey, and he has a very specific type of farm. Can you explain to us, Cory, what type of farming arrangement you have, and and thank you for allowing us to be here.
No, you're welcome. The farm is called Saugeen River CSA, and the CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture. It's a farming relationship between the land and the people who eat off of the land. It's been around for 30-some years, and I've started this Saugeen River CSA in 1997 here, and now there's maybe 10 or so CSAs in this area. And the basic idea how it works is the farm is looked at as a not so much as trying to produce the most food possible, but it's more how do you feed a community of people that surround the farm. And so most CSAs have a wide variety of products to try to provide as much food for the local community as possible. We focus here on vegetables. Some farms also provide meat. But the arrangement is people are not so much buying the individual products as they are paying a share price to help support the farm, and the farm is providing them with food. And so the way I work, we have a main season that runs for about 5 months of the year, and people pay a fixed price for the season. They can pay for it however they want over the course of the year, but it's a fixed price. And then they get a weekly supply of produce from our farm each week for those 5 months. And so it's going to vary depending upon week to week what I have available. But my main goal is to provide the people with food. It's not to try to sell for the best price possible. And they're not trying to get the best deal possible. It's this mutual relationship between the people being fed by the land and the farmer who's tending the land.
And I assume that people can pick up what they want based upon what is growing and being harvested on that particular week.
Yeah, so there's different CSAs operate slightly differently. Some of them deliver their shares to people, in which they pre-box everything, and sometimes they just drop the box off on the front door. Some CSAs operate that way. Mine is people come here, and you can see some of this, there's choices involved, because I know some people like certain crops and some people don't like other crops. And so I try to give people an option, but the reality is if people are wanting to eat locally and eat from the land, that actually choices have to be somewhat limited because that's this direct connection to a place.
So you harvest basically when the vegetable should be harvested when it's ripe.
Yeah, so an example, tomatoes is an excellent example because anything you get in the supermarket is almost always harvested underripe. And then it's ripened either artificially or just ripens through time in the transportation process. So sometimes they're harvested really underripe and they're packaged in a truck that then is gassed in order for it to allow it to ripen. And everybody knows that a supermarket tomato is, the flavor is a little lacking.
And maybe the nutritional value is also in question?
Well, yeah, I mean, if something ripens on the plant, the plant is going through all of its processes to give to that fruit all the way through the ripening phase. And so the taste is actually an indicator of the nutritional value.
Now also, Cory, you're also known for using a specific type of farming practice. Can you talk a little bit about that?
You're referring to biodynamics?
Yes.
Yeah. So most CSAs, not all, but most CSAs operate as organic farms, meaning that they don't use artificial fertilizers or pesticides, and various other organic. Some are certified, some are not, but there's different organic practices that are used. With biodynamics, there's a few specific things that sort of go on top of that. And one of the central things is that biodynamics sees a piece of land as a living organism. And when we want to provide fertility for our land, we try to develop within the land itself. So that means I have animals. I have a small herd of cattle, and so that I grow the hay for the cattle and pasture them here, and they're providing the manure, which I then compost and use in the garden to create a self-contained fertility cycle. And that's part of what biodynamics sees, is that every part of a piece of land is something like an organ for a healthy farm. So the forests are actually a very important part of a farm, because the forests provide habitat for beneficial birds and insects. It also provides windbreaks, and the trees give more to the land even than that. But we also see wetlands and waterways as being an important part of a piece of land. So the management of a biodynamic farm is about creating sort of a whole farm space that includes all these different elements. So part of this ideal is to think sustainably, to think, okay, how can we actually farm for the next 3,000 years? So sustainability is not something that is a 5-year or 10-year plan. It's a 1,000-year plan, and that's not out of our capacity to imagine, but we tend to be afraid to imagine.
Can you give me an idea of how many families that you do supply food for throughout the year?
Yeah, my farm is, I would say, medium to small. So for the 5-month main farming season, I provide weekly shares to about 40 families live right in this area. I also do a market on Fridays that's open to the public. So in addition to the 40 families, there's another, I don't know, maybe 20 or so that come to pick up things. And then in the winter, I also provide a bi-weekly share through the winter months to about 30 families. I have a very large root cellar and have some greenhouses, although we live in Gray County, and sometimes I wonder if it's named after the cloud cover that we get in the winter. The greenhouses are often just as frozen as it is outside. But so I grow a little bit in there, but mostly it's storage crops. Over the 20 years that I've been growing here, I've experimented with and tried to work with the community in different ways to be mutually supportive, because the idea of community-supported agriculture is also about agriculture supporting the community.
And you're pretty open with your farm finance with your shareholders.
Yeah,
I hear.
Yeah, that was the original impulse with the CSA, was to create economic transparency. That was one of the central, though not all CSAs do that, but I've always felt it was important. So I have, every year I show the cash flow accounts for the farm so that the membership knows where the money that's coming in is going.
So basically, how do you see the future of your particular CSA?
Well,
given what's happened with COVID-19 at this time.
Yeah, I mean, there has been currently a great increase in demand for local produce. I think a lot of people are, I mean, there's the changes that this has brought about is a lot of it. The important thing is change of consciousness, I think, to recognize, well, maybe some of the ways we've been doing things don't make sense. But there's also been a bit of fear as well, people being concerned about food sovereignty and food security, because that, especially early on, there was a great deal of doubt as to whether food chains would be able to maintain themselves. It hasn't collapsed in the way that some people were afraid, but it got people to think, does it make sense for me to be, going to the supermarket to just buy stuff that's shipped from wherever, when we actually have people who can grow food right here? And the thing is my farm is limited in what it can provide for. But if it can have a stable, which it actually does, it's been stable for quite a few years. If there's a stable clientele, then that means the farm can keep going. Whereas some farms are, struggle to make ends meet, and especially a lot of small farms, and they end up having to collapse and then get bought out by bigger operations.
Are we able to take a quick look outside and see a little bit of the outside landscape where everything is being grown?
Of course, but it is beginning of October, so it's not so much where everything's being grown as to where everything is dying because of the time of year.
Well, thank you.
but we can still take a look. Yeah.
Thanks. Well, Cory, I see that you mentioned you're basically offering vegetables, but I'm seeing around us two-legged vegetables.
Yeah, I have a small flock of chickens, obviously, and I raise ducks. They're ducks that were born here. I keep a mating pair, and I sell duck in the fall, and I sell eggs through the season just to a select group of people. I don't have a huge flock.
And I guess you're going to show us a very important part of the farm, some of your four-legged cows that offer incredible amount of fertility to the farm?
Yeah, so the herd of cattle is very small right now. I have had a larger herd in the past, and I did have horses. I used to farm with horses, but I don't currently. Yeah, I'm gonna lure them out of the barn with some vegetable trimmings from carrot tops and celeriac leaves.
Well,
and,
let's go and greet them, eh?
Okay. I always heard it said that cows that are born on biodynamic farms have better shaped horns.
These are majestic creatures, no doubt about it. So Cory, we're looking now at your garden site of where the garden is. Can you explain what you do as far as the garden and the health of the soil?
Sure. There's about 4 acres here, and my crop rotation is such that I have half of the space in rest each year in cover crop and half of it in production. So it alternates part in production, part in cover crop, and the cover crops are based on the need to rejuvenate the soil, to encourage the diversity of life in the soil, and to keep the soil covered so that it doesn't lose organic matter.
Thank you very much. Well, that was a wonderful time that I had at Cory's farm. And normally at the end of every video, we encourage questions of the person or family that is being interviewed. I'm wondering if we do have Cory with us tonight. And I see his face, and he's, oh, well, I'm so impressed that I don't have to answer any questions. So anyone who has any questions, would you kindly put it in the chat room, and Simona will take care of the questions, and I'll leave it to Simona and to Cory.
Well, hi everyone, and Cory, I have a question asking, can you still practice biodynamic farming without having your own herd of cattle?
Yes, you can. The idea, though, is that you're aiming for a self-sustained fertility of some sort. So you could also, if you have a small garden, you could consider yourself maybe becoming annexed to another farm. And I've had neighbors who ask me for manure or ask me for a bit of compost, and I can usually supply a little bit for a couple people. But it's if that is even problematic, you can also keep worms. And I would really encourage anyone who doesn't have the ability to have farm animals, you can always have worms as your domestic farm animal that you tend to, you have the consciousness of feeding them and of them providing fertility for your space. So everyone can have worms. And I mean earthworms.
Cool, thank you. Is there still a room to join your CSA?
Well, the winter CSA has already started and it was full for this year. The next season's CSA, I do have a bit of a waiting list, and anyone who wants to get on the waiting list, it's not huge, but can contact me, and I provide the month of January for return members, but then if it's not full, then I open it up to people on the waiting list in February, and then it's first come, first served till it's full. And this year, I suspect it will fill up quickly, to be honest.
Cool, thank you. Next question, how do you irrigate your farmland, or is it just rain?
I use drip irrigation from the well. So I'm very selective as to what gets irrigated, because not everything needs irrigation all the time, but the drip irrigation is nice because it doesn't use that much water and it can focus the attention where it's needed. So I rotate it as needed. Yeah, the garden shots in this this film that was early October, and there was not so much to see. It's unfortunate. If you came in August, there'd be a lot more to see.
Right. And one more question: what has replaced the horses?
Oh, I have a tractor, and I've always had a tractor. It was always a combination farm. Some things I did all with the tractor anyway, but the garden was managed with the horses for 10 years. But there's challenges in terms of overall farm labor and management, and trying to carry too many baskets around. So I had to simplify a bit.
Right. Can you please repeat where are you situated? We have a question.
Yeah, so we're on Highway 6, 7 kilometers north of Durham.
Thank you. Okay, I guess, Michelle.
So I think having a 1,000-year time horizon is absolutely what we need to be doing. So I'm just wondering what proportion of America's food supply comes from community-supported agriculture, and is that changing?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. The CSA movement has, it bursted, I'd say, through the 90s and early 2000s. I think it leveled off. There's a lot of CSAs start, but then don't last too long. How many there are right now, I really don't know. But it's still, I would say it's a very small percentage of where most of the food is grown. But I think there's the potential for CSAs to feed way more people, but there needs to be more farmers. And I think that's one of the keys of farming sustainably for the next 1,000 years, is that there actually needs to be more people farming.
Thank you, Cory. Anybody else? Any question?
Well, I have to thank Cory for coming tonight, and I have known Cory for quite some time, and I find that he does practice what he preaches and vice versa. And it's always a pleasure to see how many people come onto his farm. Sometimes they help him, but they're always so eager. And I always keep hearing the same thing, Cory. How come there's so much? and you also give recipes, do you not, to help your members out, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, we made a little recipe book a bunch of years ago. It would probably be nice to reprint that. But I also on the farm website, which is SaugeenRiverCSA.com, there's a tips and tidbits page that has sort of hints on what to do with all the different. It's but a lot of it is people talking to each other and saying, well, what did you do with kale this time? And that, it's people oriented, and it's more of a community exchange. And that's what I think is the best part of it.
There's one more question, if I may.
Oh, yeah.
Is there room? Is there an opportunity for volunteer labor, Cory?
Sorry, for what?
Volunteer labor. Somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I do, like, because of the membership lives all fairly close to the farm, there's times when I put a posting on the website and they could call out if I need extra hands to do something. And almost always some, 1 or 2 people, sometimes 6 people, sometimes 8 people, will show up. And I enjoy that part of the farm, that people get to come and experience what it means to grow food. So I'm always open to that, but always let me know ahead of time.
Well, thank you very much, Cory, for allowing us to visit your farm and for you being here tonight to answer questions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And now we're going to go to our second video. We visited the farm of Thorsten Arnold and his wife. We actually interviewed him for an extended period of time because he will be joining us a second time in March in the nature-based solutions segment as well. So I wanted him to be in both segments. We are not going to do total justice to everything that he said tonight, but we'll at least get an indication and see what his garden looked like when we visited, but we will get the benefit of his word later in our sessions. So if Kevin would be so kind as to show us and Thorsten Arnold's Persephone Market Garden. And thank you very much, Thorsten Arnold. We're at his farm and his beautiful gardens, and we have a beautiful day to see all the wonderful life and what is being produced on Thorsten's farm. Thank you for allowing us to visit with you. You're being thought of, and people know you in the area for being a real advocate of regenerative agriculture. Can you give us an idea of your thoughts on regeneration?
So thank you so much, Vitold, for inviting me for this interview and just being able to show our beautiful farm. First, I would like to give reference also to my wife, Christine. Christine is the main farmer who's managing all field production processes, and also the bulk of how this cropping system has been developed and fine-tuned is her credit. Here on the farm, I am helping with implementing ideas, and I'm also working. But a lot of the intricate details of production are her accomplishment. So I'm a big picture thinker, and for me, this question of regeneration has become very concrete after we had a few very hard, difficult years.
What is the scale of your garden, the size, and how many people would you imagine you're supplying with fresh, nutritious food?
We've never made the exact calculation how many people we supply. We are currently doing a bit more than an acre. We are producing for 20 weeks about between 50 and 60 boxes, which provide vegetable for one family. So it's 50 families that get vegetable for a third of a year. But we also sell through Eat Local Grey Brews. We sell to a restaurant or several restaurants. We eat ourselves just from 1 acre. And in addition, we employ, this creates 3 jobs for half a year for 1 acre. If we would add another acre, we would have to employ 3 more people for half a year. And this is really, like, people discuss about meaningful work environments. This is highly skilled labor which we are offering here. Yes, sometimes it's repetitive. Sometimes you're shoveling compost for a day, but sometimes that's, or not a day, actually maybe half a day. And for half a day shoveling, I consider that exercise. It's a great diversity of how we move.
Do you have anything, words to offer? How can people know how to make choices for the food that they're eating?
We are living in a marketing and sales society where everybody now jumps on the bandwagon of it. But in general, if you buy local, your chances that you get it from a real farmer who cares and who learns may not be perfect. But if there's a learning process involved and a curiosity, then people will improve their skills and eventually think about their soil. So if the closer you can buy from the farmer, I think the larger your chances are to get healthy food. Gardening, there's nothing, like what we do is basically large-scale backyard gardening. It's really hard to do that at field scale, what you can do with the love and the fun of an afternoon on your own home.
Well, are you willing to show us a little bit more of your garden?
Most certainly, thank you.
So what are we looking at right now?
So this part of the garden is being prepared for winter. You can see that there's still a few crops in the ground, but in a lot of areas we have already removed the crops and we've covered it with tarp. So our farm is not yet at a stage where we are fully regenerative, but we have made the decision to regenerate our soil and stop plowing. So we are still at a stage where we have to deal with weeds, we have to deal with a lot of the transition bumps from a tillage-based system into a full no-till system, organic without any pesticides. And one great tool that modern technology has given us are those landscape fabrics. They are membranes that let water and moisture go into the ground, but no light. So this cover allows the soil to, or allows the seeds to germinate, but then they die. And so this is our way how we get weeds out of the ground while continuing to nurture the ground. And what we did here is we put compost underneath and then covered the beds that were already taken out of production. And next spring, we basically don't have to wait until the ground is dry and we can drive over it with a tractor. But what we simply do is we pull away those tarps, then we take our transplants from the greenhouse and put them right in. And we can do that as soon as there's even an hour or an afternoon without rain. And that gives us such a great advantage in this variable and highly complex climate that we are moving into now.
We appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Thorsten. As I mentioned before, he gave us a lot more to think about during our visit with him, and we will hear the rest of his talk at the Nature-Based Solutions session. As you noticed, we didn't even miss a beat, and it started to rain a little bit during that event. But again, it was so very peaceful at his garden there. Now, I believe that Thorsten is with us. He does have a little extra time because I know he was nice enough to join us. He has other commitments tonight. If anyone has any questions for him, would they again pass it on to the chat room? And Simona, would you be kind enough to help us?
Hi, Thorsten. Welcome. I have a couple of questions. How many years do you imagine it will take to become fully regenerative from the tillage-based land?
Quite good question. Thank you. And first, thank you very much, Cory, for your fantastic farming experience that we feel like a second generation following after. And it's great to have these old mentors in our community. What we do right now is our neighbor has horses, so we get the compost from his farm and apply it on our field. And that's something which and we have a small flock of sheep, which also gives us a little bit of compost. But the amount of compost that we're using is the reason why I consider us not regenerative. We're adding to the system, and we should actually producing from within the system. I don't know. I'm impressed that it works. 5 years ago, just imagining you don't have to till was impossible for us. And suddenly it works, and it's improving our soil with a dramatic speed. And I think that's something that really gives us hope. We basically could almost double the production this year. And next year, we know we can do it another time, but then we have to basically sell more shares, because otherwise we don't know where to put the food. I think 5 years is a time when the mycorrhiza stabilize. So I think 5 years, no tillage is when the soil should make a real tip. And I think biodynamics, they often talk about 7 years. And maybe that's more close to the truth.
Great. Thank you. Ready for next one? How do we encourage more young people to take up the small farm model?
Yeah, if I could answer that question. To be honest, I don't know. We hope to make farming possible without working too many hours. I think one of the dangers of farming is that it sometimes becomes such a commitment that it really puts off most people in cities. And I think my wife, she grew up on a dairy farm, so she can just organize the day to the hour, which you learn on a dairy farm. And so we work basically 7-hour days, and if it's hot, even less, and try not to work on the weekend. I mean, there's a lot of projects, and We don't put the birds that we have for our kids during the COVID time. That's not farming time. The story is we have to make it easy and attractive for young people to say, wow, these people aren't working themselves to death and they're making a decent living. And that's a pretty high bar, but I think it's possible.
There's a similar question. How can we make it more appealing for the youngs to get involved and explore the option as a career? What is I would say, what would be the most pleasurable thing for young people to start farm?
Well, there's two things. First, young people need land to start farming, and having the opportunity to basically mess up for a year and just live the basically 40s fairy tale farm life is probably very helpful, but it needs to be guided so that they realize, wow, we can get out of there. We're not stuck there. The other part is just starting them early. Education should basically start in kindergarten, just to give a connection with the land. And if we lose that, then a lot of other things in sustainability are almost not possible, in my opinion. People need to relearn this connection to the land.
Thank you. Are you able to make a living from your 1 acre of land?
We are called Persephone because Persephone is on top of the earth in the fertility for harvest season. And the other season, they're in the underworld, which is the computer. We make about half money like in this year with the farm and computer. And I think that's a pretty good balance.
Right. Why does no-tillage farming improve the land so much?
My opinion is it's the mycorrhiza, that it's basically the pipes and information cables that go everywhere in the soil. And through tillage, you basically make a big mess out of a bunch of cables and information channels, and you compartmentalize the soil so it stops talking at bigger areas. And I think that's the reason why tillage is so detrimental to the wood wide web of the farm, basically.
Right. There's a similar question, basically difference between till and no-till with regards to the amount of carbon sequestrated in the soil in Gray County. Do you have an example?
I don't know. I don't know that in Gray County. I would not think that our farming operation at this rate of compost application sequesters carbon. I think a couple of years from now we'll be there, but the carbon cycle is so complex in the end that there needs to be a scientific ground truthing to make those claims really legitimate.
Thank you. Lighter question, what kind of green cover crops do you prefer to use in your farming practices?
We actually try to get away from cover crops in our market garden. We don't rotate. We think that every crop is a cover crop. And the main reason that we believe that people need cover crops is because they disturb the soil too much. If you have permanently soils on it and we cut off a vegetable and then on the same day there's a new transplant on that very land. So there's always like living roots in the ground and we never disturb the soil. So I think all of our crops are cover crops.
Wonderful. I think no more questions.
Oh, well, I thank everyone for giving giving such very interesting questions, and you're asking the right person as far as getting good answers. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what Thorsten has to say on our next session. And I thank him very much for being here tonight. Well, let's proceed to the third video, if we can now. We were very fortunate to visit the farm of Patrick and Amy Kitchen in central Grey County, and their farm is called Sideroad Natural Farm, and we were nice enough to have Patrick give us a little tour, and so let's see if Kevin can show us Sideroad Natural Farm.
It's a really good question because people do hear it.
And this morning we're at the farm of Amy and Patrick Kitchen, and we're speaking now to Patrick. Thank you very much for allowing us to be on your farm.
Thanks for coming.
It is a beautiful day, and we're sitting in, or standing, I should say, in some of your fields. Can you give me a brief introduction into your farm? It's called Sideroad Farm, am I right?
That's right, yeah. Sure. Well, the farm is owned and operated by my wife Amy and myself. We've been farming for approximately 10 years now, and we bought this farm, which is located in Walters Falls, about 20 minutes south of Owen Sound. We've been farming. We bought this farm 5 years ago. The farm itself is 60 acres. About 50 acres of that is workable land, and on it we grow approximately 6 acres of certified organic vegetables, and we also do 3,000 meat chickens, organic fed, pasture raised. We also have pigs and laying hens and turkeys as well on the farm.
Now, I got the impression that you and Amy have certain core values that you find are necessary and you incorporate in your farm.
Sure, yeah. I should also add that we're standing in what was the flower bed. We also grow approximately a half acre of cut flowers. Everything, all the livestock are organic fed, and all the vegetables are certified organic, and the flowers are grown organically as well. We've always grown in an ecological manner. We've always grown organically even prior to our certification. Put a lot of importance on the health of our soils, recognizing that without healthy soils, the farm as a whole won't function long term, and we as humans won't function long term.
And it seems to me, from what I read about your farm, is that your purpose is to provide local healthy food to the local community.
We run a 120-person CSA, which is focused in Owen Sound, Meaford, Thornbury, Collingwood, and we also do a run into Toronto. We also have a store on the farm, and then we also sell to a variety of wholesale customers, food co-ops, restaurants locally. That's definitely a big component of us. I mean, without the local community, we wouldn't be a viable business. So that we've received a lot of support from the local community, and we feel proud as a farm to be able to provide food for those folks.
And you do employ local citizens on the farm as well. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. We've got 4 full-time vegetable field staff, as well as another 3 part-time vegetable and flower field staff, plus Amy and myself, and then we've got approximately 3 part-time people that help out in the store, all of which are from
Flesherton up to Meaford, and all around. Without the team that we have in place here, the farm would not be close to where it is today. So we're forever grateful for the folks that work with us to sort of keep this place going and going in the direction that, you know, we think it's going.
And what are your farming practices that you employ on the farm?
We eat the food we produce. Our children eat the food that we produce, and we're proud of the food that goes out the door. We as a farm have always subscribed to cover cropping, and we've also started to incorporate our livestock into our vegetable rotation on the farm. In addition to rotating our vegetables around, we grow on approximately 15 acres. Just about half of that in a given year has vegetables on it. The other half of it is either cover cropped and or has livestock, primarily laying hens and meat chickens, pasturing on that ground. So we're basically resting half of our ground every year in an effort to build up organic matter, add fertility through pasturing chickens, and otherwise resting the soil and allowing it to replenish itself after, you know, a previous season of vegetable growing, which is fairly intensive. So every year we'll flip that field. So the field that's rested this year, which currently has an oats cover crop growing on it, that'll go into production next year. And pretty well every area that we grew on last year or this growing season will be rested next year, just to give the soil a break. And one area that we're moving into now, recently, as you're well aware, discussions around regenerative agriculture. We've always, as I've said, we've always tried to cover crop, and we've always had crop rotations as part of our farm plan. And with the real discussion and interest in regenerative agriculture that's come about recently, we've looked at ways that we can improve our practices to move even more so in that direction. One where we're standing now, this is the flower bed. We've moved the flower bed as well as all of our greenhouses to a no-till setup, where we also apply a deep compost about 2 or 3 inches to all the beds every spring, and we never turn those beds over. We've noticed even in the course of a year and a half, a significant difference both in terms of weed pressure, as well as anecdotally earthworm activity. It is absolutely mind-blowing when you don't disturb the soil, particularly on this farm, how quickly they found their way back into the higher levels of the soil.
Well, Patrick, it definitely appears that you have a strong relationship with the farm in a very short period of time. In today's world of COVID-19, how do, and people wanting to have alternatives for healthy food, local food or whatever, how do they get in touch with you, or what is available for someone who does not know of you right now?
So as I said, we do a CSA program, both a summer and a winter program. We also sell through Eat Local Grey Bruce, which is a fantastic organization. And we also have a farm store on farm. And all the information, our address and all that can be found at sideroadfarm.com. One thing I found that was really interesting at the start of COVID is, and one thing we were proud to be a part of is when the pandemic began, we found that a lot of people reached out and were looking for local food, and we felt proud as a farm to be able to be there to provide it. It's a unique feeling, I feel, as a farmer to feed people, and to know that the food you're sending out the door is going onto people's plates and kids just like ours are eating it. You know, that's the most rewarding part of any of this. So that was a you know, if there was a silver lining in the whole pandemic, it was nice to be there for people when they were looking for local food.
If there's anything that you can leave us with to give us an indication as to what this farm represents for you and your family and for the community, do you have any thoughts that you can leave us with?
For Amy and I, and for our children, it is everything. For anyone who has experience farming or even knows a farmer, they know that farmers sort of live and breathe it, and this is our life. This is where we spend all of our time, and we're so thankful for that. It's a wonderful place to be, and you know, we try to be as kind to this farm as it is to us. It's what we want to do with our life and basically all of our time, and yeah, so I'm just thankful that we found this path.
I'm very thankful that you showed us your kindness and allowing us to be here.
Well, thanks for coming.
Well, I believe that we have Patrick with us. If anyone has any questions, again, please pass it on to Patrick. Again, it was such a nice sunny day on the day that we went there, and it was very impressive to see the expanse of his farm. So Simona, if there's any questions, can you take over?
Absolutely. We have a question about what, if you can explain, Patrick, what's the regenerative agriculture?
Yeah,
what is the meaning?
Hi. Yeah, thanks for thanks for including us in this, by the way. And I guess I was feeling somewhat sentimental that day, so anyhow. Explain regenerative agriculture. Well, I guess what I would start with is we're quite new to regenerative agriculture. So we're learning, you know, as we go with this. I don't know. It's tricky for me. I guess what regenerative agriculture means to me is as a farmer taking the time and the effort to implement specific practices on your farm that help to regenerate the soils, whether it's not disturbing them to allow mycorrhizal networks to reestablish, adding organic matter, always leaving your soil covered, growing something on it at all times of the year. There's also the community aspect to it. I feel like, you know, farms are a very important part of the community, and you know, and healthy farms are an important part of a healthy community. So there's that aspect of it too. But I'm learning a lot as you know, as we really get into this process, because as I indicated, like the primary area of regenerative agriculture that we're implementing on our farm here is or at least starting to, is wrapping our heads around no-till. So as I said in the interview, the flowers and the greenhouses are now all no-till, and we're looking at sort of different areas in the 2021 growing season different areas of the vegetable operation where we can implement those practices. So it's kind of exciting. It's sort of rethinking what we've been doing for 13 years, and making a change. Yeah, it's exciting. But we're learning, I guess. That's what I would say.
Never ending, huh?
Yeah.
There is a question about, do you still have a capacity in your CAA and CSA? And then what is the potential in your area for creating more CSA or small local farm? Is there a demand?
I would say, yeah. I would say the demand for local food is huge. Absolutely.
And do you have a capacity?
As Cory alluded to, like there aren't a ton of CSA farms out there. Yeah, and I would say there's unmet demand out there. Yeah. In terms of room in our CSA, yeah, our structure is similar to Cory's in that we have about 120 or 130 person CSA. We open it up to returning customers in January, and then we open it up to a wait list in February, or thereabouts. If you just check the website, everything, all the information's on there, but we may well open up more spots this year. So it's definitely worthwhile going on the website and putting your name on the list, because we've sort of been growing. We've grown our CSA from initially 35 up to 125 where it is now, and then the winter program's a little smaller, but just get on the website and get on the wait list. We generally try to open it up.
Thank you. Question about the cover crops. Which one is your favorite?
It really depends on the application. Like the reason we went to the model of resting, half of the farm each year is we found that we couldn't grow really good cover crops in the shoulder seasons. Like when we were farming on, say, just 4 acres, we could really only cover crop our garlic ground, our early potato ground, and sort of bits and pieces of the farm. Whereas now we're able to rest land for an entire season, so you can grow really nice main season crops. It just depends. Like oats and peas are of course a great spring cover crop. Sometimes we just put in straight oats and mow them. We played around a bit this year with sorghum Sudan grass, which is a hybrid that winter kills. So I know folks are looking at that as a something that winter kills and may provide a really good mulch the following season for planting into. There's all sorts of stuff. The world of cover crop is pretty neat. I would say thus far we've kept it pretty basic here. Oats and peas, oats, fall rye, annual ryegrass, playing around a bit with sorghum Sudan grass. I know there's some people that get pretty crazy into cover crops, and maybe we'll head there. But as I say, we're still learning. But yeah, I would say my favorite, oats and peas, is a pretty good go-to. And it winter kills, which gives us some good options come the following year to put that land back into production.
Great, thanks, Patrick. Do you see an increase in interest around regenerative agriculture? Are the number of such farms increasing compared to the large corporate farms, according to your knowledge?
I have no idea. I don't know. I would say there's a. I would say there's a lot more discussion around it now, but I'm not really sure. Well, I'm not sort of tuned into those channels. I don't know. I'm not really sure how to answer it. What I would say is, there's a whole, even since we've been farming, there's the discussion around regenerative agriculture in the circles that we're in has increased significantly, which is neat.
Is it maybe more time effective for you, or what advantage do you see?
For regenerative agriculture?
Yeah.
Well, I think it aligns with our principles as farmers. So in some respects, I wouldn't say it's, I guess that's a complicated question. We just feel like it's aspects of it are the right route to go for our farm, and it's not necessarily all about what's more efficient or what's more profitable or what have you. It's strikes us as, you know, kind of the right thing to do. So so we're going to head in that direction, while maintaining while sort of staying in business. And you know, I think ultimately the farm will benefit from the regenerative practices that we're implementing, and we will be more profitable as a result, but that's not the motivation.
Thank you. I think that we need to move on, and Witold is giving me signal to end the questions.
I have to say, well, first of all, thank you very much, Patrick. You were a pleasure to be with and at the farm, and thank you for tonight answering all the questions as well. Because of time, I think we would like to move on to the fourth video. And in this video, we visited the farm, the Glencolton farm of Michael Schmidt, who offers quite a diverse description and awareness of the role of his farm. So, Kevin, would you be kind enough to let us visit Glencolton farm?
And this afternoon, we're at the farm of Glencolton Farm of Michael Schmidt and Elisa Vander. Hout. Thank you, Michael, for inviting us.
You're welcome.
We are going to be, can you give us a little history of Glencolton Farm?
We started Glencolton Farms in 1982, 83, and converted it immediately. It was a pure dairy farm with Holstein cows, and converted it to the biodynamic farming practice. From then on, you know, we expanded to adding other things to it, not because we wanted stuff for sale, but it was the right thing to do, that we had chickens and we had pigs and horses. And as a result of that, we got a lot of people interested and actually asking us if they can, you know, obtain food from us, a lot of local people. And that kind of started us on the path of connecting with the consumer directly, instead of sending all the products to an anonymous market.
You use a farming practice that is called biodynamic.
That's correct.
That's at the core of the farm, is it not?
That has been the principle of our work here for the last 38 years. And prior to that, at the farm where I came from in Germany, and also my grandfather and great-grandfather, they all used that practice, which was started in 1924 by Steiner, Rudolf Steiner, a philosopher, and it was implemented, very successful, implemented, I think, as one of the first true organic, so-called organic farming methods, but in an expanded version where you look actually they're using the term nowadays, the holistic approach, but holistic approach in the sense that we depend on the sun and the moon and, you know, the cosmos and all these things, and everything is about rhythm. So when people ask me, what is biodynamic farming? And I say, well, if you remember as a child, you went on a swing, yeah, and how hard it was to get swing going. But once it was going, then you had rhythm. And the same principles we apply here on the farm, that we're not forcing nature into doing what we want nature to do, but we work with nature, and out of this rhythm, actually we achieve the results we are, you know, hoping for, that we can feed people quality food.
So one thing I noticed, Michael, I have been on the farm numerous times, that you do promote a biodiversity of not only various forms of plant life, animal life, but also human life. Can you speak to that, about the culture of Glencolton Farm?
Well, I think you say the right word, culture. Culture means cultivating, and agriculture means, you know, taking care of the soil and taking care basically of everything what we have cultivated, even, you know, from the old Persian times, and then, you know, domesticating animals and so on. So we look at the farm as an organism as a whole, and just like the human being has an organism, you know, which consists of liver and heart and lungs and the digestive system. And it's very similar with the farm, that you actually look at an organism where you need all elements there. So, you know, I had a really interesting teacher. He was a veterinarian. He said, well, if you don't have pigs, who is the pig on the farm then? You know, that there are functions to it, to every animal on the farm, not only for the product, but also for what they contributing for the fertility of the whole farm. And that is what I call cultivating. That's the cultural aspect of agriculture. So when you're talking about agriculture which mines the soil, so we're not miners, we're not, you know, trying to squeeze out of the farm. For us, it is how can we enable the animals and the soil and the plants to produce to their capacity within their abilities and not beyond their abilities.
You know, one thing, while you're talking, I must have heard 2 or 3 different types of animals in poultry. How many different species of animals in poultry do you have on the farm?
Well, it's a good question, because you know, we differentiate with poultry. I mean, there's all kinds of different poultry here on the farm. The one thing I'm really proud of is the homesteader cow we have now, which we started breeding about 35 years ago, and, you know, without bringing anything in for blood from the outside, because my philosophy was always, you know, if you want to have something really which is, you know, grown and related to the soil and the feed, then it needs to be bred and you know, bred here on the farm. And that is what we do. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful animal. You can just see the majestic quality of these animals. And when you look at them, then you say, you know, we're not producing milk in the conventional sense. You can't even compare that. You know, that's where, you know, the whole question, food needs to become medicine, and medicine is food. You know, it goes so vice versa. So, and I think that is what we're really trying to achieve. A long way to go still. I'm not saying that we are really far in that, but we really striving for that balance.
So when people come onto the farm, and I know you have many, many locals, plus you do supply down into the city of Toronto area, you offer such a wide range of what I call nutrients in plant form, whether it's the massive garden that you have here, and other forms of protein. Can you talk a little bit about all the things that the farm does produce?
Let's put it this way. You could live completely off the farm. We don't have to go to the grocery store. We basically producing the whole variety, what you need for a healthy diet. And that means it's plant-based, meat, fruits, milk, and bakery, where we can produce our own bread. So, you know, if people
let's call it this way, if people would be committed and support farms like this one, and I have to say we have great support. We have about 150 families, but if people are really committed to support farms and develop farms together with the farmer, you know, we could solve the whole food crisis, you know, that which people were confronted with this spring, you know, when COVID hit. You know, and get a call from Toronto, where can we get meat? Suddenly panic starts because the shelves are empty. And this is what, you know, I call sustainable, really sustainable development, where there is the social component in it, the cultural component in it, and this really understanding of we are not producing, we're not producing, you know, a market item. We're producing actually health for people.
And you mentioned this co-benefit or true benefit of health. Could I make an assumption by saying that part of this co-benefit is that you are working with healthy soil?
Well, it comes at the end. It all comes down, and there was just as a little sideline when I started my calling, not my career, my calling. As a farmer, okay, that was in northern Germany, and there was above the barn entrance, there was a big old beam, and it said on it, "There is nothing more ennobling for the human being than to take care of the soil," and that is where it basically comes down to, you know, the fertility of the soil, which then creates the quality, and we all depend on the quality of the soil. And there's another saying, if you want to look at the state of a country, you look at the quality of the soil, and then you know where you're at. And I don't want to kind of say, you know, that we are in a very bad shape, but we are, I think, in a concerning shape here in North America when you look at the fertility of the soil, because it's all about mining.
Now, you do encourage, I believe, for people to come onto the farm, to get connected with you and the farm. You also offer other events you have in the past. Can you speak on some of those events? Like some people know about the Symphony in the Barn. Some people know about Chris Kindle. This seems to be a regular...
Well, I think this is... See, this is all part of this whole notion of what is culture all about. It's called agriculture. And so I always feel that there's a responsibility, and I wouldn't say that farmers have to take on that responsibility of, you know, cultivate. I mean, we cultivate the soil, but there's also this other element, and that is cultivating the souls, that people are hungry for, you know, true experiences. And what I find interesting when we have Symphony in the Barn, or when we have the Chris Kindle Market just before Christmas, that people come and memories kick in from their childhood and said, it smelled like when I was at my grandma's farm, you know. And so there's memories which kind of revive, you know, this longing for something real and not just fake. So I say always, we don't do entertainment here, but we create experiences for people so that they find a way again, I call it a way to kind of a sense of sanity.
And in the past, I remember, I know COVID-19 has prevented this from happening this year, but I remember visiting here, and you had school children with their teachers and parents being taught what it means to be on a farm.
Well, that is always something what I was, striving for. That, you know, if we don't teach and teach and teach the young, what do we expect then? Where they learn? I was always hungry to learn from the older generation, and so I made it kind of for me really one of this responsibility I gratefully took on, and that is, I want to teach the young ones, and it doesn't matter how old they are. If they come here as grade 3s and they learn milking and they learn, feeding chickens, but also the younger generation, like the 18-year-olds and so on. Very often they find a purpose suddenly. You know, so many are lost nowadays in the world because what are we going to do? You know, there's computer technician and there's that. Everything is so specialized, and then completely lost in the world, and then they come here and they're something real, and you know, kind of teach and guide the young people. I think is one of the responsibilities and the shifting responsibilities of agriculture, because as you know, there's only 2% or less than 2% now involved in agriculture, and it used to be 70% about 100 years ago. So there were a lot of healthy people coming out of the rural area, and now the rural area is basically just, you know, for cottages and people from the city who need to escape. And therefore, you know, we have a responsibility to revive also that element of teaching, you know, the basics of life on a farm.
It sounds to me like you offer that opportunity for anyone who's willing to come to you and visit. And
anyone who's open and anyone who's willing, you know, to put their, to really commit themselves. I think it's really important that people understand working on a farm is always a sacrifice with great benefits, and that is, it's gratifying. And you know, you always struggle in the morning when you get, I mean, I'm doing that now for 48 years, and you know, in the morning I always think, oh my God, do I have to get up again? And then you're up and you go in the barn, and then, you know, everything goes, and you think, oh my God, I love it. You know, I just love it, because it's this work which makes sense in the world. And if you want to do something to do good in the world, this is one way how you can do it.
well, I thank you very much for your words today.
You're welcome.
Well, that was a wonderful time that Kevin and I had at Glencolton to get some thoughts from Michael Schmidt. I don't know if he is with us at the moment. Is he around, Simona?
I don't think so. We can call him in. Michael, are you here? Or Elise? No, I don't think that they join us today, but what a great talk he had. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he must have had something come up, but I do know is that I was very happy that we had the 4 videos that offered 4 very distinct and unique farm operations from 4 very unique and distinct stewards of the land. And I felt very privileged to have the opportunity to have visited all 4 places. When I made the list up originally of farms that I wanted to video and talk to, I quickly came up with over 20. And I said, I don't know where to start, so I'll just keep asking. And once I get to 4, I figure that will happen. Well, it didn't take me long. And I do emphasize that the 4 that you have seen tonight is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many other, younger, middle-aged, or those who have been doing it for a long time. They're all around us. And it's just a matter of looking for them. And not only eating their food that they grow, but to listen to their words of wisdom, because they have definitely a very strong relationship with the soil, with the area, and it is very moving for me to have been on those 4 farms. So this will wrap up my set part. I thank all 4 farms for participating, and for those that were able to answer questions tonight. The next stage won't occur until the fourth Tuesday in January, where we will examine a different variation of food distribution locally. We'll be talking to Eat Local Grey Bruce Cooperative. We'll also hear from the co-owner of the Owen Sound Farmers Market. We even have our good friend Simona Freibergova, who will be showing us the community garden in Meaford that she's been responsible for. And we will also be speaking to the food security coordinator at the United Way, Paul Wagonar. And that should give us a slightly different perspective of promoting and distributing food to all of us in Grey Bruce in an effort to maintain and to promote a sustainable food security community. I thank everyone who participated and who witnessed and had wonderful questions. And as you can tell, I was deeply moved by being on these 4 farms. So Barry, would you be kind enough to help me here and do your thing? And I thank everyone for being here tonight.
I will be told on behalf of everyone, all the organizers and the sponsors, I'd like to thank you for being here. I was particularly engaged with all of these. I have a backyard in Owen Sound, and it's actually got plastic cover all over it, getting ready to be regenerated into a new garden in the spring. So there's lots of great information that was shared today by all the local farmers. And I think if we're fortunate enough to live in a place where we have access to a community garden or a backyard or a CSA farm, I totally got the inspiration from our speakers that spending time outside with a shovel in your hand is something that's going to allow you to feel the rhythm of the land and your heartbeat as it gets going. And so it was very inspiring talks we had tonight. So we're over time a little bit, but I would also encourage everyone to visit the Grey Bruce Sustainability website, gbsusnet.com, and there you'll be able to register and see the remaining episodes in this particular series. And also go on the website Grey Bruce Climate Action, and you can zero in on groups and events, and also join a collaborative chat room to stay connected with all the people that are involved in these very connected issue these days. So once again, thanks to our sponsors. And I think unless anybody's got anything else to throw into the ring, I'm just gonna shake my friend's hat and say to all, good night.